Good evening. This week we are again in the evening. So last week we were in Australia and therefore we had to do it in the morning. So now it's in the evening. We are in Italy today. That are the SAPI IP Business Talks. My name is Alexander Wurzer. I'm very happy that you are here and watching us. This is a live event, and the idea of a live event is that we have a live interaction with you, the audience. And so I would be very happy when you write something in the chat, when you have questions, especially to our guest and our topic, and we are happy to integrate that here into our discussion. So, Marta Bettinazzi. So I think Bettinazzi is clear. It's obviously Italian, I guess. I'm very happy that you are here. We work together on LinkedIn. You know the team of the IP Business Academy. It's a great pleasure. And first of all, so we will talk about a very interesting topic. It's a huge topic. We explored that during our discussion, that gaming and games and IP is a real issue, a multi-billion market. And Marta, please introduce a little bit yourself to the audience and explain us why we are talking about IP and gaming today.
So thank you for having me here. And welcome to this live event to everyone. I am a lawyer, an IP lawyer in Italy right now, working for the Maggi Legal Law Firm right now. And about in my previous life, I was a PhD, and I'm still a PhD in Roman law and European legal culture. And just right after that, I became the IP business advisor for a European project based in Vietnam. And what stays between my PhD in Roman law and my career as an IP business advisor is exactly gaming. Because the fact that that sparkled my interest into intellectual property was indeed my passion for video games. And all the complexity I could already see in there from a legal perspective. And so the reason why I'm talking to you is because I used to be more than now a gamer. It's lovely to have time for playing. But apart from my personal bias, which is strong and I declare it, I want to talk a little bit about the gaming industry as in general. You will see that on the event page there is a short presentation, but it's just to you to be able to follow better and have more data for later and asking questions. But the idea is that the gaming industry is big, is flourishing, and since we were all locked in our own homes, this helped in a way the industry.
Yeah, and when we don't watch Netflix, we play video games.
Exactly. And so this made also people that maybe have never played or were not so close or have not played in ages going back to playing. And we see this a lot also in the shares of revenue among the kind of games that now is inclining more and more through casual games or games that we play on our phones. This is because, again, it's something you do, but it's not necessarily something you are passionate about. But this is still a game. So we have to consider the IP strategy and the IP implication, even in those kinds of games that maybe are something we don't personally like or approve.
Yeah, and it is a multi-billion business, and the games, the machines, the consoles become better and better, so the games become more and more immersive, as the term says. So you live really in that games, and the games are big, they are open, they are online. We have multiplayer games in open worlds, so things which are really, I would say, fascinating, and people, to a certain extent, live in that world.
Yes, and in a way, there is also, how do I say, a shift from the classical games where you buy the game and you play it and you are by yourself on your computer or other platforms, to a cooperative environment that is completely digital, has no physical copy anymore. It's completely online, exclusively online. So there is a big shift on the industry, also on the user-generated content that we are not going to cover too much today, but still are a thing, especially in this kind of open world sandboxes kind of games.
Can you explain us how does the companies make revenues with that games, especially when they are not sold over the desk like in the old days? Games were like a piece of software, like books. So you bought them in a box, and when you wanted a box, you had the software and you had the game. So today things are different. And
yes, we have differences in two ways. One is the distribution system, that now it's basically entirely online. So we have the big players like Steam, and then of course the Apple and Google stores for mobile. And as for the revenue itself, they come for the most part out of what is called microtransactions. So the games at one point ask you for more coins, a little bit as it was when I was a kid, and there were those big hardwares where you have to put the money to play the game. It works a little bit like that, but in a digital environment. And there are other kinds of games in which you can buy cosmetics elements.
Okay.
For example, the biggest name probably now, it's Fortnite. I think everyone at least heard of it, and Fortnite is making its revenue entirely out of the microtransaction and cosmetics buying, because it's actually free to play, so you don't pay to get it.
To a certain extent, is that you get a freemium version, so the starting point is free, and like a drug dealer, and once you get addicted to it and you want to become better, that's the way.
It depends, because there are games in which it's clear, it's free to play, pay to win. So it's free, but you pay for getting better, or you pay for some sort of gambling schemes. For example, the new soccer games, I think the new FIFA, has a sort of drafting system in which you pay. It's again interesting. Other cases, like the Fortnite I mentioned, they swear that you don't pay for winning. You only pay for cosmetics, but the pressure, the peer pressure inside that game is insane. So you are willing to buy, to show to your friends that you are committed and you have the new shiny things which is in the market. But as far as I know, they declare at least they are not paid to win. If someone is playing it and wants to tell,
you pay for your equipment and getting the latest weapon or whatever, and to show also to the, that's a strong pressure, isn't it, especially for the young kids?
Yes, indeed. There is now a sort of movement from parents, etc., to try to impose to those games to be clear when communicating with kids in saying that they are spending real money, because we are discussing often of people that are underage. So you should, you should educate your own child, but in a way, we all, as a society, should make sure that he's.
When you write kids, you know that they distinguish the real world, of course, from the internet world. And so my little daughter said once, where I said, no, this is too expensive. We cannot buy that. And she said, okay, so let's order it via the internet. Yeah, so
because of course it gets for free at that point.
There it doesn't cost anything. Okay, but I mean, it is so. Money is an abstract concept, yeah, and buying something is also, what have I bought? We had the discussion in the 80s, 70s, 80s when software became an object, a good, which was traded, and then the question, what do you really got when you
got a software? Yes, it's
exactly.
still a problem because now that everything is digital, I have to rely on the fact that the games I bought will be available in 10 years because the service will be still there.
Can I sell used software? And what is used software? It's an interesting concept too. Yes. So now it is even more abstract because now it's just access, nothing else. And to explain the kids that that's real money, which is paid here for some pixels. But for them, they are not pixels. For them, it is a real sword. Yeah, it has the same value as a sword in their hands.
And also, honestly, it depends on the age of the kids. It has a reputational value. I mean, it's. We all have been teenagers, and I'm glad I was a teenager when these kind of things were still not a thing in that way, because the reputation and the peer pressure that comes with this kind of stuff, it's huge. And again, of course, we are now discussing as IP professionals and talking with companies and saying, yeah, sure, there is a lot of money to make and there is a lot of value in these games, which is true, but still it's handled with caution because
I mean, the pressure having the latest sneakers, and so what we see is that fashion companies produce sneakers just for games, so they don't exist in reality in terms of what we call reality, but for the kids it's a part of their reality, having that sneakers and paying money for that, for having them in the game. I mean, so okay, we clarified how companies make money out of that. So obviously there are different kind of IP issues are here. Can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, yes, sure. Just one thing, I'm not going to explain what the different kind of IP are or mean, but if someone has questions, please ask in the chat. The point is that in video games, you can see almost every kind of IP except for geographical indications that are still not there. But for the rest, you can really see everything because you see all the kind of IP you will see in a normal software. So copyright on the code, trademark on the name of the game, the name of the software, the name of the company. You also see the graphic user interface that are now, due to the Locarno classification changes, became something that you can register as a design, and you see patents. However, on top of this, you see also all the copyright on the creativity that is put into a video games. So things like music, things like the image, the design in the sense of the actual pictures of things, and also you see, of course, that there is an idea of an IP as the video game as a whole. So because video game as a whole is a multimedia collective work. So you can see all these parts as separate. You can, in a way, pull them away, but still there is something under that is more than the summing up of its components. So everything that you can think about in terms of IP, you can find in a video games. Of course, also, I now discussed the disclosed IP, but there is also all the part on trade secrets, which is everything you don't want to show, including most of the time your code or your source code. So you have also this duality between the copyright and the patent on the software that, of course, run across also the industry of video games. But also you see video games as secondary IP, because sometimes, more often than not, IP. Video games are based on previous IP. There's an interesting story about the newest the game series that is based on the Lord of the Rings, and when the first one came out, they only had the license for the movies, not the book, and it took them when the second one, the Middle Earth, the second game came out, they finally had also the IP, so the license on the books itself. So it's a very rich in IP kind of industry because of the industry itself and for its secondary reuse of previous IP.
Yeah. So the entertainment industry would call it's an exploitation stage, that I have a book and then I have a movie and then I have whatever little miniature figures or whatever, and then I have a game.
And to be honest, sometimes it happens also the other way around. Yeah. They are rarer, but there are cases in which the game started. One famous one is Super Mario. Please don't look at the movie, but it exists. And there are all the miniatures, etc. Sonic has just come out, and other, like maybe more Japanese-based kind of IP. Because, for example, we see Steins Gate Zero, which is a video game, and now it's became an anime, and if I'm not mistaken, a series of novels. But so we see both ways. The flow can go both ways, but definitely, I mean, there is a lot.
Yeah, got you. And what?
I think you are breaking out.
Really,
sorry,
we are back.
Okay, we are back.
Yeah, I of course. I saw also just black.
Okay.
The point is that, do you see that that the gaming industry, the big companies, the producers, that they use IP strategically to that this IP has really a business value for them, or is it like in other industry, for example, machine manufacturer, so where IP is, yeah, we have to do it, but it's not like, you know, Telecom or Signify, so this big IP company. So how is it there?
So actually, what we see on the industry side is that they tend to register extensively to protect and to exploit, in a way, all the aspects that they can. For example, one case is that you can protect as trademark in-games element. So something that was at the beginning just part of the design of the game, once it acquires its own distinctiveness, it will become a trademark, and we saw it many times. One example is in the slide, but it's common that you see icons or elements that are in the game and characterize the game, acquiring the distinctiveness this way, and then be registered as a trademark. And it's more or less the same with the graphic user interface in as design registration that we see quite often, because of course the user interface is a big part of a video game. So the way this interaction works, it's important, it's a value, and so they have a clear idea that it should be protected. Yeah. And has to be protected.
And I mean, the trademark case you mentioned, I mean, that's exactly the strategy from the movie industry that you create characters like Disney, which they start to create characters with the movie, and then they exploit that in completely other stages, like in the theme parks or wherever, or merchandising. And to a certain extent, it's exactly how the gaming industry behaves here.
In a way, it's similar. The difference here is maybe in the fact that we see, for example, with recent cases on patent, that the industry doesn't really like when someone acquires a patent. It's something it's considered sort of unfair to get patent on video games, and maybe we talk about this later, but we still see this happening because it's a huge value. I mean,
as I said, when it touches certain technical aspects of using resources, of prioritizing access, whatever, there's a lot of technology behind that, and who is not believing that should go to the 80s or the 90s and watch that video games. So you will find a lot of technology behind that, and of course we have this hardware software interaction, and I don't see any point why we shouldn't have patents on that. It's not about a character, it's not about the story, it's about how it is implemented technologically, and that can make a huge difference in their user experience.
Yes, and indeed, of course, as Europeans, we have this problem in general with patent on software, but in particular, we have the exception for
which problem? Where's the problem?
For video games, at least, we have this thing that, you should not patent the rule of a game. That's to begin with.
Okay, that's a game. I mean, that's but no, I mean, when you have an algorithmic solution and you have a technical problem, and many issues in games, and in the way how you present something, how you deal with graphics and so on. So that is pure technology. And so yes, it is implemented in terms of software, but finally you solve a technical problem and then you get your patent, and that you use software for it, it's not an issue. So
yes, but
I'm totally relaxed on that.
Is that in the Apple guidelines, they still quote a case from 2003. So I'm wondering what happened after, because it's an interesting case. Sure, it's a soccer games where they managed to patent the small thing that you see outside the screen to indicate where the player, when you want to pass, is. So that thing is considered a solution of a technical problem, not relied to the rule of the game. Bear with me, because it's the way it's done. But in other cases, in other let's say law setups, we see that patents are given. I don't want to say more freely, because it took, I think, 5 years to Warner Brothers to get this last patent. So I'm not saying they are giving them for free, but still we see that they have a different approach again. And but the point is, when we discuss when we discuss software, we have to discuss globally. We cannot say, okay, there is a patent in the US, no problem, I just sell in Italy. And how are you going to sell it? You are going to deal it to your friends. So having an idea.
I just read some. I just read some of the comments in the blog, in the chat. So yes, of course, you are totally right, Dermot. We have around 65,000 software patents each year in Europe, and 1/3 of all patents now are more or less digital patents or software patents. So I agree, and so far as I know, it's also so that that in the gaming industry we see big portfolios on that, and it's simply what Marta said is simply that in we have different jurisdictions, and we have to take care in which jurisdiction we go for what. I mean, and this is not the place to discuss that here. How could video game or game patent protection be other examples? Yes, we will come up with a new series on did they really, in terms of did they really patent that, and we will come up with some examples from the gaming industry. Marina, I promise you that. Okay, so that was something from the chat. Back to you, Marina. So let's come to author.
I lost you again. Great. Sorry, can you hear me?
That are open.
I lost
yes,
you.
I hear you again. Sorry.
Sorry. So you were saying something, but I had no idea what.
Don't worry. I repeat. It's about authorship. And when we say that these the games become more and more, let's say, open platforms, and that the user interaction creates to a certain extent the content, so then it becomes more and more interesting. Who is the author here? Yeah.
In reality, this was a problem that was already there because, for example, there is a game which is Tetris, which is as old as me, but the creator never got the revenue until 10 years later, the developer. Who is the author? It's a big question when it comes to collective works in general, because the author should be at that point the person that coordinates the work. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes,
I'm
I hear
by myself.
No, I'm here. I'm here and I'm listening to you.
Okay, so you are back because there was also...
Part of the world is listening to you.
Okay, that's great. Let's dive into it. So, I mean, the author in a collective work is the person that coordinates. But this in the gaming industry can mean many different things, because it can be the person that coordinates the development of the game, but there is also the design, but there is also sometimes there is the game director, which is like an higher figure. And on top of this, you will also have to consider aspects like the music, the writing of the video games, which sometimes are coordinated, sometimes are independent. And in a way, what I see is that there are games that there are situations in which gamers recognize an author, which is for some level enough, because at least in Italy we have this law that says, yeah, the author is the person that is mentioned as such. So if you mention someone as an author, is the author for what we know, it's okay. So we see that some games are considered games by someone, but in other cases like AAA games, we don't see this authorship relationship. But in a way, we expect them to be there, because we assume that an author is always a person. So you can talk about it's work for hire, it's the economic rights are on the company from the beginning, great. But as far as for the law goes, an author is a person. And
by the way, we had the decision in China that the regional court declared an AI. I wrote a blog post about that. That an AI was, so an AI wrote a little piece of a sport commentary.
Yes.
Yeah, and a digital platform copied that, and then the court said this is a copyright infringement. So they accepted that the AI created something like a copyright.
But the AI in that case make the place of a person, not the place of a company. I mean, we will not consider Konami or whatever Square software as authors. They are the owners, okay, great. They are the ones that get the money, so no problem about that. But still, there is something left on the people, and or at least should, because a case which has reached the newspaper in 2015 was the fact that Konami removed the name of the person who was mentioned as author, which is Kojima, from their game. So they sort of divorced at one point, And Konami decided, okay, the name will be cancelled from the game, from the merchandise and everything, which for us is like nonsense. Also because honestly, if there is one author of video games which is well known in the world and everyone talks about him, is Kojima. Is very famous, of course. I mean, probably outside the inner circle of my very nerdy friends, not so famous, but still, if you parameter on the user, people know who Kojima is, and still his name was cancelled. I don't know, they probably had some money compensation. I'm not questioning that, but still, we have this idea that the moral right of the author are always there, and even passed to the child or the son and the daughters, etc. So it's in a way that the way the industry interacts with authorship is one of a kind.
Okay. There is a question, Marta, from Tim, which is very interesting, and the question is, what is your experience how third-party IP is handled in video games? So let us assume that there in the game is a car, and this car is from BMW or whatever, and especially the smaller video game producer will try to avoid to pay then a license, even to ask for using, for example, their trademark. So
yes, the point is
even a recommendation from you.
Actually, the rule is you should not use other people's trademarks, full stop, in commercial activity. So what I see is that when they don't acquire the original license for whatever reason, they come out with interesting names. This happened for soccer games, for football games, that they made up the name of the players because they didn't own the rights on the name of the players, and so they come out with mocking names that you can still understand more or less that what we are talking about. But speaking of that, there is a story which it's a US case actually about a game on NBA, and there was the tattoo artist who made the tattoo on the player that ask compensation for copyright infringement because the tattoo was shown in the game. It was part of the because now they are so detailed that more or less you can see the tattoos, etc. And I found particularly interesting the fact that the US court decided not to decide. So they say, yeah, but it's just such a small part of the game that they even calculate how many bit the tattoo was compared to the bit of the entire game, and they were saying, it's fair use. But for me, it's very, very funny because at the end of the day, they didn't want to decide. That was the story. They didn't want to decide if there was a copyright infringement or not. Yeah. So they went with the de minimis doctrine is called in the US. So they say, no, it's so few, we don't want to enter it.
But, that's a tricky issue, yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the authorship. So what is the relationship between the author and the software house, which is at the end the producer, so to speak? Is it like a publishing house and the author?
Not really, because it's most of the time it's a work for hire. So meaning the author himself or herself works for the software house. So the relationship is a direct contractual relationship. However, we also see with indie games, because as we said at the beginning, games are many, many things. And we see huge companies like Square Enix, which don't even mention authors on their games. Final Fantasy is by Square Enix. You can go and you can dive into it and try to pinpoint who was the game director, but it doesn't really make the big difference, again, from a user perspective. But there are cases like the small indie game I mentioned in the presentation, which is just an example of a game I recommend, which is made by formally by a company, which is called Freebid. But in reality, it's one person. Is Mr. Kangao, who I'm probably mispronouncing it, but this person has hired people to develop the game for him. But the idea, so the author in a way is himself, because he's the one coordinating everything. According to the now website, they have around 5 employees, something like this. But this is a way of like the other side of the spectrum. So we see big, huge software house with thousands of people working and one person coordinating it, which is just acting as an employee of the software house. And on the other hand, we have people that build their own game with their own idea and their friends. So we can see both, and I think it's interesting that this online, the moving from physical to online gaming, has also enabled independent indie games to become a real thing, because they are sold on Steam alongside the AAA game. So the worst case scenario, no one buys it, but is on the shelf. So they managed to get on the shelf, the digital shelf.
Yeah. Okay. So let's use our final minutes. Give us what is your expectation about the future? So I would expect that the IP management, so the economic use of IP, becomes more and more important. So even when in the early times it was more or less neglected, so it was just a creativity issue in the early days, but in the meantime, it is big business, and it is and from the perspective of the producers, it's a huge investment which they have to bring here in, and the investments go up and not down. And so I would assume that we will see, for example, these merchandising or other exploitations of the characters and the objects which are created, that go up in the future.
What I expect in a way is that the big software house will get bigger and bigger in a way, and getting more intense in their investment. To give you an example, Lara Croft, the name of the character, it's also protected for cosmetics, in case you are interested. So like
that is what we see, that the fashion industry really goes into the gaming industry and starts with enormous investments for cooperation, because they see that they can get in contact with with an audience which is otherwise not reachable for them.
Yes, so again, this is what I expect. If you ask me what I hope for, is I hope that even small companies and indie game company will become aware of the fact that they are producing value through their game, and that they can protect it to avoid just being in a way limited by the biggest company. And what I expect also to see is as we mentioned, a more intense battle on the patent side. Because, for example, the new Nemesis system, which is a patent by Warner Brothers, came out this year, is promising to act as a block patent. So basically, you have to go through that to acquire the new level in the development of your game. And so I expect more and more of these bottlenecks to appear.
We would call it keyhole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in fact, the people were not happy at all that Warner Brothers get that patent in the first place, because there is still this old mentality. Not more, it's more romantic than old, like that. Oh, we are at the same industry, we are all cooperating, it's all about the entertaining, the fun, etc. But that's not so true. I mean, let's be honest, it's an industry, and all the industry works the same
Obviously,
way.
I mean, it's a multi-billion industry, and there are huge investments in that games. I mean, it's obviously not just for fun. Yeah.
And also that patent in particular, the Nemesis system, is applied on one of those games based on the Lord of the Rings. So again, we see this IP value coming back and forward from the industry, because it's the Shadow of Mordor game. And it's an intricate and complex patent that is going to affect the future of the industry. So I expect that to be a thing in the future. Maybe not just this one, but many more are to come, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, something where I came across with that are video codecs, for example, that we need very powerful codecs to bring 4K video information on mobile phones. Yeah. And this is a tricky issue, because we need that data stream going through LTE, and the next stage is then 5G, because we want to game everywhere, and we want to have the best video.
Yeah. I think I lost you again. Sorry, I lost you again.
But we are back, and we will see additional technologies. We will see virtual reality becomes better, especially augmented reality becomes better, and then it is that games are not anymore something which is in front of a screen.
Yeah, we had big explosion with Pokemon Go on the phone, where people were going, me included, going around, also interacting with real people, because you at one point understand you are there for the same reason.
It showed this kind of interaction, which was then possible based on that technology.
It was augmented reality. So for sure, you had this fact that there were other people in the room. Let's say.
No, I mean, it's a twofold issue. The one thing is the augmented reality thing here, and the second thing is that we have the communication tool, which can improve the gaming experience, and that's a good example of this interplay between technologies and gaming. And to a certain extent, we can say for a very long time, technologies are used to improve gaming experience.
I hope so. There is a lot to improve, and in reality, as a user, the future is probably mobile. I mean, I know it sounds a little bit like an advertisement, but what we see and the trend in the market and what we see as user is that we want to play at least some kind of games only on our phone. The computer
wherever they are.
Yeah, the computer will stay for maybe more intense game and things that you like, the screen quality, like where you can appreciate the beauty of the graphic, etc. But for simple games, we want to play everywhere. We want to play on our phone.
Yeah, and sooner or later we will have it just in our glasses.
Yeah,
and nobody will see that you play a game.
That can be tricky, let's say.
Okay, Marta, what we not discussed today, it was the question of user-generated content within games. Yeah, right. So like nearly always when I have this IP business chats and interviews, it ends up that we would like to talk about that for some hours more. So again, to you, Marta, you are invited. We will do that again on some other issues. And by the way, I saw that my boss is also here, Jan Basier, the managing director of SAPI. Of course, it's an honor for me to tell you that SAPI is giving lectures, and especially we have a seminar about droit et hip hop. So my French is extremely bad, but the point is that especially the interplay between IP and the pop culture is an issue which SAPI addresses heavily. So take the chance and look a little bit.
I actually saw they did a day of presentation on the IP the law in Miyazaki, which is one of my favorite Japanese authors. I highly appreciated that. Sadly, the IP was the last one touched. It was very late at that point, but it was very interesting, and I really think that we should all have fun while we work, in a way, so we work better. Yeah. So touching on things we like, it's a pleasure. So that's it.
We do so, and we received pretty much welcome and good recommendations and thanks on the chat. So thank you very much, Marta. I invite you to come to go to LinkedIn now, to the after show party, and to discuss with our audience. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marta, for giving us that interview and that discussion. And I wish you a nice evening. And to be honest, as a German, I hope we will win this evening. Okay, so
whoops.
Yeah, it's a UEFA thing. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.